Great, thank you. I submitted my resignation to Todd on July 29th, effective immediately after this meeting, because I don't have the time to do the work that the committee is now required to do. And for a couple of different reasons. And I want to apologize to the committee members because I think in part a lot of it is coming from additional expectations on behalf of the county and the county staff, but also on my end, as many of you know, I just recently got married, and I did not think that I would be married as soon as I am. And with that, I'm moving actually. Moving households and rehoming a cat that I have. If anybody's looking for a cat that gets along with dogs, and starting my new life with Dr. Richard Turpin. And I am not going to have the time with my work demands and the additional committee assignments and my new commitments at home to continue to chair out the duration of my term, which is another 6 months. And so I submitted my resignation. Having said that, I feel very good about the work that we've done this past 18 months in building the committee and identifying our key priority areas and doing the team building and strategic planning that we have, and feel very confident that when I hand off the chairmanship to whoever ends up being chair, that individual will be able to take it to the next level. And so Katie just said to us, Michelle, that we are required to nominate a new chairperson at this meeting. And at this point, I'll open it up for any discussions or nominations.
So, Kay, this is Michelle. I would like to put myself in. I would like to self-nominate.
Okay. One nomination for Michelle. And Michelle, that would be fulfilling the remainder of my 6-month term. And then of course, trying, if you wanted to, you would run for re-election during the next regular election cycle. You understand? Okay.
I did understand that.
Okay. Are there any other persons interested in being chair? Then we're going to go ahead and call for a vote. All in favor of Michelle taking over the chairmanship, raise your hand or signify by saying aye.
Okay, I'm sorry, we have to do a roll call vote for the minutes.
Okay, go ahead.
Candace Custodio Tan is absent. Jose Gaspar is absent. Kay Kelly Turpin. What is your vote?
Sorry.
What is your vote?
Oh, we're doing a roll call vote. I am
Yes.
so sorry about that. Aye, or yes.
Michelle?
In favor of. Yay.
Carolyn Smith, what is your vote?
No.
Jeanette Shelton, what is your vote?
Yes.
Michelle Krug, what is your vote?
Yes.
Jessica Kramer is not on. Sherry Kane Zabara, what is your vote?
Yes.
Rakina Boyd Kamei, what is your vote?
Yes.
Okay, those are 5 votes in the affirmative, which would be the majority.
Then Michelle will resume chairing the meeting at the following month, September, correct?
Yes, correct.
Congratulations, Michelle. Thank you for stepping up.
Thank you, Michelle. We're excited to have you as our new leader.
I'll just say that, as I think all of you know, this is really important to me. So thank you for your confidence.
Jessica just sent me a text saying she's trying to get entered. Is she in the waiting room? We'll go ahead and start with welcome and introductions. It looks like we have quite a few guests today. So what I'd like to do is have the committee members introduce themselves, the district that they represent. And if you feel comfortable just sharing a little bit about your personal life experiences. My name is Kay Turpin, and I work for Home of Guiding Hands. We help individuals that have intellectual or developmental disabilities, such as autism or Down syndrome. I also have chronic substance abuse disorder. I have 7 years of sobriety, and I'm a newlywed. Jeanette will go with you next.
My name is Jeanette White Shelton. I have been a disability management counselor for 30 years. I'm retired now. I worked the bulk of my career with disabled faculty and staff at the University of California, Berkeley and UCSD. And I also did a lot of workers' comp work for Kaiser as a consultant.
Oh, and I'm sorry, I represent District 2 Supervisor Joel Anderson's district.
Oh, and I represent District 3, Tara Lawson-Reamer.
And Rakina.
Hi, I'm Rakina Kamei, and I am the wife of a disabled veteran, and he is a wheelchair-bound veteran with multiple sclerosis, and he has actually a pretty advanced form, so there are a multitude of disabilities that come with that, all wrapped up in one package. I've also taught special education for a very long time, especially with students with moderate to severe needs. Some of them would grow up to use services like Home of Guiding Hands that Kay deals with as adults. And I live in District 2, but I am the at-large representative. I'm also the vice president or vice chair of the committee. And so thank you.
Carolyn.
Good afternoon. I'm Carolyn Smith. I'm the 2014 Veteran of the Year for the 71st District in San Diego. I am a combat wounded veteran. I am a biotech. I'm sorry?
I think that was Jessica Kramer. I'll ask her to mute herself. Sorry about that.
I didn't hear that, but that's okay. No. That's okay. I am the director and president of 3 Paws Up, which is a veteran-owned nonprofit that provides inspirational material to children in critical care. I am just finished appointment to the San Diego Military and Veterans Advisory Council. I'm a veteran advocate, and I am 4th year now in my PhD, so that's why I don't have a whole lot of time. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. And Sherry?
Hi, my name is Dr. Sherry Keynes-Ibarra, and I represent District 5. I have my doctorate in education, and I was a regional director for an organization that provided services with people with developmental disabilities. And we provided services for people with disabilities and homelessness or at-risk homelessness for veterans. I also worked as a surveyor for CARF, which is Commissions on Accreditation for Rehabilitation Facilities, which meant that I was a surveyor that would go out to organizations that provided services for people with disabilities as well.
Thank you. And Michelle?
Michelle Krug, I represent District 4, Nathan Fletcher's district. I am a retired City of San Diego wastewater operator. So I cleaned your poo-poo water for 30 years. I've been retired about 12 years now. I serve on the California Alliance of Retired Americans on the executive board, as well as on the AFSCME, my union, American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, on the retirees, and just do a lot of education advocacy and immigration and homeless are kind of my 3 major right now. Thanks. And thank you all for serving, because I know sometimes it's hard to fit it in among the other priorities in our lives. Oh, I'm sorry. One last thing, Candy. Candy asked me to let everybody know that she is going to be back in September. She has had some medical issues and is recovering well, and is just the time-wise, it hasn't been working for the meeting for this month, so she's planning to be back in September. She just wanted to let everybody know that.
Good, good. And we also, we have Jessica Kramer.
Hi, I'm Jessica Kramer. I'm District 5. I was appointed by Jim Desmond, but with redistricting, Tara Lawson-Reamer is the new district supervisor. I have a recurrent meningitis, brain injury, and post-traumatic stress condition that led me to become the founder of a nonprofit called REACH, which helps elders and dependent adults who are struggling with homelessness access the systems in accordance with the Americans with Disabilities Act. And I'm also a lived experience member of the HEAL Homeless Experience Advocacy and Leadership Group of the San Diego Housing Federation, and also of Lived Experience Advisors. And I have a task force that's organized and for the last year has been working directly with law enforcement to create a best practices standard for elder and dependent adult abuse.
Thank you. And then we'll go to our guests. Randall?
Hi, I'm Randall Schoblum. I'm with County Council, and I'll be giving a little introduction to the training today.
Great. And Michael?
Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Vu. I'm the Assistant Chief Administrative Officer, and I want to say a couple of things. Kay, thank you so much for your service and being the chair. And I know that it is, and when you volunteer your positions, all of you, you never know what you're going to quite get into. And certainly with the profileness of certain events that's happened not to all boards and committees and commissions, there's even more to do. So, but I do want to appreciate and thank you for all of your services the last 18 months, Kay. And then congratulations to Michelle. As Michelle knows, her and I have worked together for the last, since I really came to the county 15 years ago in my prior capacity as the registrar of voters, and now get to work with her now in my new capacity as the Assistant Chief Administrative Officer. I really am here to support all of you, but also support our staff and our team. And Todd, as him and Katie have been facilitating the conversations with the committee itself. Just as a matter of background, and I think you heard from that group or that department, the Registrar of Voters Office, but I have some experience in this respective area as I oversaw the Voting Accessibility Advisory Committee, a really robust committee of individuals. And frankly, when I came on board, we had to reconstitute the Voting Accessibility Advisory Committees, and was successfully able to do so, and really had some really good insight as we were looking at how to ensure accessibility for our citizens and registered voters to be able to vote. And in the same vein, I know from an enterprise-wide level, county-wide level, is to do the same with all of you. I know that this is unlike the Voting Accessibility Advisory Committee. This is a Brown Act body, and I want to be respectful of that in the way that the processes and the discussions will go. To the extent, I just wanted to let you know the support that you have on a countywide basis in doing and in advising us and making us more aware and being cognizant. I know that we've got a long ways to go in understanding all of it, more than some than others, but that will take time. I always saw this group, as well as I did the other one, as a committee that needs to be here. This is something that needs to be. I've run marathons, so this is a long run as opposed to a short sprint. In certain cases, it might feel like we're in an ultra marathon type of situation. Anyhow, I am here in a variety of capacities to listen in and then chime in should you need me, but here to support Todd and Katie. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. And Natalia?
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Natalia Bravo. I am the Chief of Staff for our Chief Administrative Officer, Helen Robbins-Meyer, and Michael Vu. And I am just here today to listen and support in any way I can. Thank you.
And Andrew?
Good afternoon, y'all. My name is Andrew Strong. I'm the county's director of the Office of Equity and Racial Justice. And also our office is a lead staff for Leon Williams Human Relations Commission. So just here to listen in and support and start engaging with y'all in the future.
Andrew, if I remember correctly, I think we met you when you were newly appointed in your position. Is that right?
I think you're right. I think I did come out here.
Anyway, it's good to see you again.
It's been a
Craig?
while. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Craig Schaefer. I am a group program manager in the county's Finance and General Government Group Executive Office. And like Natalia and Andrew and the rest of the team, I'm here to listen into the conversations that go on today and support you all however I can. Thank you.
So you'll be doing the budget analysis for Mr. Potter? I'm just kidding. Some people thought that was funny. Okay, so now we are on the 2022 Accessibility Board letter, and I'll ask Todd first if he has any updates, and then we can delve into that.
Thank you all. Yes, and I'm Todd Hood, the county staff liaison for the Committee for Persons with Disabilities, as well as the countywide ADA Title II coordinator for County of San Diego. What I wanted to cover today is just briefly, I'm going to pop through some of the slides that we've got just to give some background and then to get into the recommendations that we've got from the community engagement outreach that we did, that we've been talking about over the past several months in relation to the Board of Supervisors board letter on January 25th, where the Chief Administrative Officer was directed to identify areas within County of San Diego services, programs, and activities to increase communication, to conduct community outreach with relevant stakeholders and community members, and then to receive input from the Committee for Persons with Disabilities as it relates to programs, services, programs, and activities for people with disabilities. So we actually set up a working group. I called it the Accessibility Awareness Working Group. It was a cross-functional, or it is a cross-functional group of about 30 individuals from a variety of related and relevant departments across all 4 management groups. We've had so far about 12 working group and subcommittee meetings. The group got together and conducted the community engagement sessions, as well as designed and developed the questions for the accessibility awareness survey, and then as well been involved with the analysis of results. One of the things that was an outcome of this activity was we created a new web page that is the Accessibility Awareness Community Engagement webpage. We have, of course, the ADA notice there, information on requests for accommodation, how to file a complaint, links to a variety of San Diego advisory boards, commissions, and committees, as well as links to other community-based organizations for resources for people with disabilities. As it relates to community engagement sessions, we promoted those sessions through email invitations to about 30 community-based organizations, through county news center articles, as well as media press releases, social media postings. We actually had Facebook and Twitter postings, and people interacted there, as well as newsletter emails. And I'll share that a little bit about the survey. We were looking to receive input on increasing awareness of accessibility to programs, services, and activities for people with disabilities. That was the focus. We did have alternative languages for the survey, and as a result of working with the Committee for Persons with Disabilities, we made an extra opportunity for anyone that needed assistance completing their surveys to be able to contact the Office of Ethics and Compliance, and made resources available for anyone that needed assistance with completing surveys. The survey was open from June 3rd through June 24th, so for a 3-week period. We promoted that survey via, as similarly to the community engagement sessions, we promoted the survey through similar channels, to include, as I mentioned, email invitations, social media postings, etc. On this slide, there is, just to describe the slide, there are some different screen prints of the different advertisements of the survey. So that's what we've got on that slide. And then on this slide is a depiction of the 469 respondents. We were shooting for 250 respondents, but we were excited to get, and we found that a significant number of respondents were really engaged. We got great input. A lot of it was constructive. It was very informative. And so of those 469 respondents, about a third, a little over a third, cited that they have a disability. And then about 2/3 either cited that they either have a disability or are a caregiver of someone with a disability. So about 63% of the respondents were in that category. So that's the category that we are going to report out on to the board, and I wanted to share some of the findings here with the committee. We'll have a report of all the different data, but that's the core group that we wanted to definitely focus on. So we asked the question of which finance and general government group departments do you use? We did give them a listing of all the different departments, and for those departments that respondents may not have recognized by the department name, we also gave some background of what the department does. Well, for the finance and general government group, the leading departments were Registrar of Voters, Assessor Recorder County Clerk, which handles marriage licenses, vital records, property records, etc., and then Treasurer Tax Collector, and the Communications Office, which does County News Center, social media, and that type of outreach. And then a component for Human Resources. And then for HHSA, we found out, or Health and Human Services Agency, we found that these departments obtained the most interaction. That wasn't a surprise, because most of the population we would have expected would use Health and Human Services Agency services, such as aging and independent services, including in-home supportive services or IHSS. Those are caregivers that have been appointed by the client of the service, and then behavioral health services, self-sufficiency services, which includes our family resource centers and those outreach through our regional centers, housing and community development, public health services, and medical care services. We also looked with land use and environment, and we found that the leading departments there are parks and recreation and library. There were some for planning and development services as well as public works. And then finally, with public safety group, we found emergency medical services, animal services, and sheriff were leading, as well as county fire, district attorney, and probation. So all that being said, we looked at the departments that most people with disabilities might use. We wanted to make sure that those departments have an opportunity to hear from the community. So we are working with those departments to catalog those areas and how they hear from the community. Some are through the community planning group and sponsor groups, as well as through other advisory groups similarly to the Committee for Persons with Disabilities. There are a few departments that may want to have information or use the Committee for Persons with Disabilities as an opportunity to hear from the community with regard to services, programs, and activities for people with disabilities. So I'd like to offer that for the committee to consider as you continue to look at your objectives for the year.
Thank you,
I wanted
Todd.
to also just share very briefly, or let me ask if there are any questions or thoughts
Michelle-
about what I've shared thus far.
Michelle does have her hand up. So do you want to take questions now or at the end of your presentation?
Sure.
Okay.
So just initially, honestly, I had originally put my hand up because Todd and Katie, our illustrious Katie, had not had a chance to introduce themselves. I will take, if you want to, Todd did it, I guess, before the presentation. But I do have two questions on Todd's presentation. One is that you said that 2/3 are the core of the survey, basically the ones that connected with a disability, either they themselves or that they were caretaking.
Yes.
But then, and you said that's what you're going to report out on. So are you
I think
Michelle, did we lose you?
I think she disconnected herself by accident.
You know what? I actually do have a question. So if maybe we can wait until she comes back on. But if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to ask a question.
Go ahead, Carolyn.
I know that I heard that we have Andrew on the line as well, and this coalesced over to Andrew. But and forgive me if this is a little bit off center, but I think it still applies. You're looking at the accessibility and programs for the disabled, and I know the index map is typically used to identify inequities and those things. I just had a conversation with a senator and SDG&E in regards to these. A lot of these county programs that are for disabled people, say for example, the solar program, the SDG&E solar program. or the compost program, or a host of these other great county programs to offset or completely pay for products and services to assist in disability, to assist in, the climate action plan, et cetera, and so forth. My question is, why do all of these county programs exclude East County? So I live in East County, and for example, the solar program from SDG&E, it's not equitable because the index map it excludes, and by the very information inside of the index map and the law says you can't discriminate against geography. I'm wondering why, and has this and will this be addressed, that all of these amazing county programs exclude East County, Santee Lakeside, rural East County. And does anybody have a beat on at what point is that index map going to start including rural East County? Because the disabled there, the protected classes that are there are the exact same that are replicated throughout the county, but yet they're disenfranchised and don't get access to the programs that the rest of the county does, excluding rural East County.
I'm not familiar with the exclusions of East County. I don't know. Is anyone from staff familiar with East County being excluded from?
Yeah, and thanks, Todd. I'll just jump in, and feel free, Michael, if you want to jump in too. But I would have to definitely find out more about what you're talking about, Carolyn. It sounds like you're referring to specific programs and a bunch of different departments that are potentially excluding, I guess what I heard, potentially excluding East County residents in the unincorporated area. And so I definitely would want to talk to you more about that to find out what you're specifically referencing. But it may be, if you're talking about specific programs, or we might want to think about how we get those departments to give presentations about what those programs are doing and how they are or not benefiting and supporting the East County unincorporated areas. Because I know for a fact that's something our departments are very, and the Board of Supervisors, quite frankly, very adamant about making sure that we account for. So that's I definitely would want to learn more about what your concerns are.
Okay, and
I would love. Sorry.
It would probably be better, since Todd is in the middle of giving his update, if the two of you connected offline.
That's what I was going to ask. Yep, absolutely.
Carolyn, we can go ahead and set in well, I can't do it. Michelle can set an item on next month's agenda. And we have Michelle back on the line now, if you want to proceed with your question, Michelle. Do we lose? Oh, no, there she is. Well,
Michelle, it looks like you might be muted. There we go.
There we go.
Okay. Thank you. So my question was, when you were talking about it, Todd, you said that only a third of the people who filled it out are actually disabled. Since I never got access to that survey, I have no idea how it was worded. If it was asking specifically for disabled people to fill it out, or if it was just asking about their experience with disability in the county. But I'm wondering, what I understood you to say was that 1/3 were actually disabled themselves, considered themselves disabled. 1/3 were caretakers, and that 2/3 is what you were going to be reporting on to the Board of Supervisors. So what happens with the last third?
Oh, the other groups or the other categories were people that were interested in learning about people with are learning about services, programs, and activities, or people that, and we're going to be in the report, it'll have all that information, but we didn't want to, in my presentation, we didn't want to make it so complicated. So we wanted to focus on the responses for that core area, the core group there.
And the question itself, who did it ask to fill it out?
So the promotions stated that the county was interested in hearing from people with disabilities to understand how we might be able to improve accessibility awareness to services, programs, and activities.
Michelle, I think that, so there were 2 surveys that were sent. The survey that Todd is presenting the findings for was one that was sent, from my understanding, exclusively to or requesting people who were disabled or working directly with the disabled to participate in the survey. There was a subsequent survey that was sent out on behalf of the county, 2 actually, one from Health and Human Services, and then the recent one where Jessica and myself pointed out that disabled individuals were omitted from that survey. The one that Todd is presenting on was geared towards capturing information from disabled populations.
I understood that, but he was clear in saying that of the people who filled it out, only 1/3 were actually disabled. Another third were caretakers, and the third is why I said, why were they even filling it out? And I obviously didn't even get access to it. So that's another conversation. But in terms of the people, there were only 1/3 that were disabled. And I just wondered what is going to be reported to the board and what happens to that other, why did another 1/3 fill it out if they are not disabled and were not? He kind of answered that by saying they had some interest, but I'm assuming they didn't answer any of the other questions other than they had an interest.
They did. So and it wasn't a mutually exclusive. The categories, there were several people that answered multiple categories, so it wasn't only one. So it doesn't add up to 100%, because there are people who were people with disabilities, as well as caregivers, as well as people interested in learning more. So it wasn't a stratification like that. But we're looking at about 63% were either a caregiver and or a person with a disability.
We can go on.
Okay. Let's see, let me just pop back in here. Any other questions? Thank you all so much for the input. So moving on, just really quickly, just want to give you some background on some of the responses that we received. We asked, how do you learn about services, programs, and activities, as well as how would you prefer to learn? And in certain cases, there was pretty consistent how they learn as well as how they prefer to learn. But there were some differences that we wanted to, that are going to help us in our recommendations. Some of those differences are more people prefer to learn through the county website than who are currently learning through the county website. More people would prefer to learn through community-based organizations, through case managers, etc. Actually, less people would prefer to learn from a family or friend. So some of what we are looking at is people prefer to be independent, self-determination. They want to learn from experts. They want to hear from people that are experts. So we're taking that into account when we make our recommendations. The next item that I wanted to share is the question around how do you access services, programs, and activities, as well as how do you prefer to access? We found that there is consistency there with county website, telephone, etc. But more people would prefer to access via a mobile app than who are currently accessing via mobile app. More people would prefer to access via in-person mobile services. So here we see that people want to be able to access services, programs, and activities where they are. They want to be able to do it and again have that level of independence. So again, we'll share some more about how we're using that in our recommendations. This was a question about difficulty finding information. So we found that about 20% of the population found it either easy or very easy, where about 40% or so found it difficult or very difficult. So we wanted to look at what is it that is making it difficult. So the question then was, why is it difficult to access services? Here, the leading responses were that it's difficult to find out what's available. I don't know where or who to call for information, and it took a while to find information. So here we know that we already have an initiative to look at how information is being provided and structured, and to look at it more from the individual, the audience, the recipient of services, as opposed to by departments. So there is an initiative that's currently underway, and the Committee for Persons with Disabilities is already on the radar for being able to provide input. So county communications plans to come back to the Committee for Persons with Disabilities to get input on this new structure for our county website. So that is one of the items that we're really excited about, that is going to help make it easier to find information, at least for those people that want to find it through the computer, on the website, through the internet. Another question that we asked was, how many people or how many requests for accommodations are people making? Here we found that a great majority of people have not requested an accommodation. So there we actually are looking at making it easier to know how to request an accommodation, as well as training our employees on making accommodations available, even if someone is not explicitly requesting, but we see that they need some assistance. So again, we want to make sure that we are reaching people where they are. For those people that have requested accommodations, we saw about 30% were satisfied or very satisfied with the accommodations that had been made. But we're not happy with that. We want to focus on the 20 to 35% of people that were either dissatisfied or very dissatisfied. So we want to make sure that we're looking to, again, provide more information about accommodations that can be made and how to request those accommodations. So here are the key recommendations that we're proposing and are working through and want to get input from the county's Committee for Persons with Disabilities. One is to look at staffing for accessibility support. So that would include the team that supports the Committee for Persons with Disabilities, as well as our departmental ADA Title II coordinators, the countywide ADA Title II coordinator, et cetera. We want to see if there are resources additional resources that might be needed, whether it is staffing or technologies. We also are looking at other boards, commissions, and committee appointees to have greater representation across the other boards, commissions, and committees. And then reviewing policies and procedures for accessibility awareness. So this would include, when we have community engagement sessions, to include best practices for reaching out to populations of people with disabilities, as well as providing the accessibility for them to participate. An additional is enhanced employee training for interacting with clients and customers with access and functional needs. And then promoting the Committee for Persons with Disabilities, as we already have been doing, but to continue to do more of that with other departments, as well as with the public, so that the Committee for Persons with Disabilities is known and people know that the committee exists, and some of the activities that the committee participates in and can assist with. And then, as well as requested through the board letter, to report out on enhancements for accessibility to services, programs, and activities for people with disabilities. So I'd like to stop now and just hear really some input, any input from the committee on those recommendations, and or if there are others that that you feel need to be explicitly included.
Todd, I'll jump in here. I had seen the previous parts of the presentation, but this part is new. And so I'd like, if we could, just to share this with the committee via email, and Michelle, whatever form. I think Michelle would like it in a text message. But this is fantastic. The staffing in particular is going to be, here's the thing, we know from the survey that two of your findings align with our priority areas. And we can talk about that a little later. But one of the things that Supervisor Vargas had mentioned in her letter more than once is that she wanted to see representation of disabled people throughout the county, but also on other county boards. And when I think about the recruitment and the training and the retention efforts that will need to take place in order to make that a reality, it is a Herculean task. And it is certainly not something that the committee members themselves will be able to do with any level of continuity. And I've been saying for a while now, even just with basic recruitment, I mean, the county has a television station. And our survey says that people, like 40% of our participants, like to get information from the television. And so just that one campaign alone to recruit individuals with disabilities to sit on other committees would be a huge undertaking. And I don't know that there's anybody on this committee that has the time or the talent to do that one task. And so I would say that these are spot on, and even in the order that they're presented, but specifically staffing for accessibility support. I've sat on other committees in other government jurisdictions, and the two where there should be representation in every area of the business are diversity and disability. And for that to happen, we are going to need the same level of commitment from our county management team that our diversity counterparts have. And I just don't see that that's happened so far. So I'm in full support of this. I don't know if you need us to officiate it by vote. I'd certainly love to hear from the other committee members to get their input, but I think this is fantastic and you did a real good job with this.
Thank you, Kay, and definitely welcome input from the other committee members.
Michelle has her hand up. Michelle, you're muted.
Sorry, I apologize. That was my hand up from the last time.
Oh, okay.
Then I thank you, but we will be sharing this. I wanted to give you a preview of what we're considering. We're still working with to get the slide deck finalized, but I wanted to give you a heads up on the direction.
Thank you. We have a really tight agenda, but we have some important things that we need to discuss. I'm wondering if we can hop around a little bit instead of going to, and I can review the committee objectives on the record if the guests would like to hear them, but I'm wondering if we can jump to, I just have a question about the ethics training. How much time did we carve out for our ethics training today?
That's just going to be yes, and we can have Randall present. He just wanted to present, or we requested him to come on to present some background on it. So just a few minutes. So if Randall is available, we can go ahead and do that.
Then we'll go ahead and jump to the ethics training, and we will we'll spend the remainder of the meeting talking about our committee objectives and sunset review. If that's okay, Katie, that's okay. It should be okay. All right, so Randall, you're up.
Thank you. I was beginning to wonder if you were doing the actual ethics training today, because it's a 2-hour training. So I'm glad you're saving that for another time. Anyway, so I was asked about to present to you just a few minutes about what the ethics training is, where it came from, why do we all do it. So this isn't a requirement of all local government agencies in the state of California for anybody who sits on a legislative body. And the bill was numbered AB 1234. It comes from the 2005 legislative session. I checked the legislative history on this. I didn't particularly remember the origins of this. I wasn't a government attorney at the time. But no surprise, it comes from a political scandal. Usually when there's change to how we do things in government, it's because somebody got caught doing something. And there were several agencies up in the Sacramento area that were mismanaging public funds. And it came to the attention of the public that while local government officials have to comply with all these public rules about transparency and conflicts of interest and such, there was no requirement that anybody got trained on the rules. So it was very ad hoc on whether government agencies were doing that training. So that's where this all comes from. So that's why, 10 years ago, we got the PEPRA legislation, because there was clearly some things going wrong with some public agencies on public retirement. There were changes out of the city of Bell about a few years after that, because all of the executive pay was being done in secret sessions and things like that. So anyway, when we see things like this, it's because somebody goofed, right? So we're trying to do things better. And this law is so that all public officials on any legislative body, which is defined by the Brown Act, which is part of the training, would be your ultimate legislative body, which would be the Board of Supervisors in a county, or if you were in a city, it would be the city councils, and all appointed boards and commissions and committees under them, specifically that receive either a stipend, compensation, or reimbursement of expenses. Anybody who could potentially touch money. This group that you guys belong to is entitled to reimbursement of expenses. Therefore, the AB 1234 ethics requirement applies to you. So it is a 2-hour training that you have to take within the first year of being appointed to your board, and then every 2 years thereafter. It's very flexible in how you receive it. The county can provide the training. You can go to a law firm, they'll provide it. The Fair Political Practice Commission, which is a state body, they provide a free version that you can go online and do on their website. You just have to keep a copy of the certificate you get at the end of your training and turn it into the county. The county is obligated to keep records of your training for that 2-year period. So every 2 years you have to do it.
Randall, some of us did the training. The county actually facilitated it for us at the admin office.
Good.
However, I think some of the rules as it relates to the Brown Act have changed because of COVID. So it may not be a bad idea if we could do it collectively as a group again, since we have new appointees. Is that something that the county is still willing to provide for us?
You can talk to Todd, obviously, your supporting staff to see if they're going to do it or they want our office to do it. That's obviously something county can do. Or if you want just a refresher on that particular point of how the Brown Act changed, and there's also some pending bills that may get changed again this legislative season. So I don't know.
Okay.
Happy to do that. Just the last point I wanted to mention is that the FPPC, that body I mentioned before, they set regulations on a lot of these conflict rules. And one of the regulations they have the authority to do is to establish the content of that ethics training. So whoever provides it has to double check to make sure that rule hasn't been updated. But generally the laws you're supposed to cover in that 2-hour training are related to financial gain. So like you go over bribery rules, campaign financing, conflicts of interest. There's certain prerequisites of all holders of public office. You can't, about accepting gifts, misuse of public funds, things like that. Going over the transparency laws, which would be the Brown Act, the Public Records Act, the Political Reform Act, and then fair process, things like bias, incompatible offices, things like that. So all of the subject matters. So regardless of the provider you get the training from, they should be talking about the same subject matters because those are defined by that FPPC. So that's where the law comes from. That's why we do it. Planning Commission does it. The Board of Supervisors, you mentioned the planning and sponsor groups. I work with them. They have to do it. So there's a lot of bodies in the county that have to do this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Randall.
Okay, we're going to review the committee objectives, and then I'm going to open it up for discussion on some of the work that we've been requested to do to see if we can garner any volunteers to complete these assignments. When we met at the beginning of the year, we came up with 5 priority areas. One of them was Health and Human Services, specifically the contract that they give to 211, and if the information is being kept or current. We have not had a presentation for our guests. We have not had a presentation or work with HHS on that because we've been working on other initiatives. Right now, initiative number 2 is public safety, specifically if disabled individuals are treated differently at the jails and how they're being represented by the public defender. We had one of what I think will end up being 3 or 4 different presentations. Our public defender's office had come and given us some information. Well, let me back up. Before we made recommendations for any changes, we wanted to do a thorough, diligent information search and then convene and make a formal representation to the Board of Supervisors on any changes that we felt should be made. So we're really in the discovery and investigation process with all of these initiatives. Accessibility and overview from the Register of Voters. We had a fantastic presentation from them. I don't know that there'll be any action follow-up items. Special education services that were being, any special education services that were being provided by or affected through or tailored by distant learning. That's a huge one. We have not started that one yet. And then disabled veteran services, specifically what the Military Advisory Council is doing for the disabled vets in our community and how much affordable housing stock is dedicated to those vets. We're working still on number 2, the Public Safety Initiative. And so I'm not sure how much longer that will take, but we've requested more information from the Sheriff's Department after a presentation that they gave the month before last. In the midst of all of that, we received an email from our county clerk's office as a result of Supervisor Vargas's letter that we complete 8 action items. And would it be better, Katie, just for me to read those on the record, or just the ones that they want the committee to work on?
If you want to go over them, but I can also share my screen so everyone can read them as well.
Okay, that'd be great. I did email them out to everybody because I realized that not everybody had received them. Number 1, an evaluation of the committee's level of involvement in county programs relative to the duties and responsibilities defined in their establishing authority, actions accomplished or completed on issues assigned to the committee by the Board of Supervisors, and or status of the goals set by the committee. This would require that someone contact each and every committee member individually and ask them about their level of involvement in county programs, and then write up a narrative of each committee member's involvement in county programs and make a correlation whether their involvement in those county programs is relative to any of their duties or responsibilities on this committee. The second.
Actually, Kay, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm not certain if it is committee members' involvement, but I don't know if maybe one of our guests might be able to give some more background on number 1, but I believe it's the committee's level of involvement, not each and every committee member. I don't know, does anyone who's on staff, can we get a little more clarification?
Let me jump in here really quickly, Todd and Kay. I've spoken with Andrew Potter, who's our clerk of the board, on these 8 items.
Okay.
There are specific things in these 8 items where I think there are involvement of the committee members that should participate in, and then there are others. As I was looking at this, one kind of stuck out at me and saying, is this really for the committee or not really for the committee? And so I'd like to really have the clerk of the board chime in on this and look to see whether or not they were looking for staff to really fill in some of these items. For example, like if you get down to number 7, budget analysis of the county cost and the benefit of to the county of the committee. I think that would be more internal than it would be to the committee members, and that's something that I think what that should probably happen is once we get that clarification from the clerk of the board. I think number 2 then is for staff to put something together and present it to the committee, and to as far as what findings has been made, and then any additional input that the committee may have on these 8 items.
Kay, can I just ask that if people are going to speak, if they would kindly say their name and maybe with the guests a connection of which office you're working with, just because I can't see you. You have no way to know any of this. I know that, but I'm blind, and so it just would be easier for me to try to connect since I don't know your voices yet. Thanks.
So I apologize for that. That was Michael Dew.
Oh, I should know your voice. Thank you.
It's okay. My bad.
So that actually, Michael, is great news. That would be the last one then would be the justification for continuance.
I'm sorry to interrupt. This is Natalia Bravo. I have reached out to Andrew Potter and he's gonna jump on the call really quickly.
Okay.
So hopefully he'll be able to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Natalia.
Sure.
So I'm just curious, are you having the planning committee write a justification for continuance with their appropriate goals and timetables for their committee?
I'm sorry. This is Michael again. Is that who's that question directed to, Kay?
It's directed to somebody at the county of San
Oh, sorry about that.
So I'm just curious because in the opening of this, one of you had stated, it might have been Todd, that this applies to all committees and boards.
Yes.
And so I'm just wondering, who at the planning commission is going to justify in writing with appropriate goals and timetables the justification for their continuance?
So all of this will get rolled up. Again, this is Michael Vu. This will all get rolled up and it's under the purview of Andrew Potter, our clerk of the board, who's going to be jumping on. So he's collecting this information across all of the different bodies, the boards, commissions, and committees that are out there. And once that gets rolled up, then that will be presented to the full board, and the full board will certainly be the body that will determine continuance or not continuance. But that's something that the full board was the one that created the bodies, and so therefore they would need to take action on its continuance or not continuance.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm understanding that there's equality here in what we're being asked to do with allocation of our time. So I'll give you another example. Is the chairman of the Law Enforcement Review Board justifying their continuance of their committee with appropriate timetables and goals? Because if they're not doing this work, we shouldn't be asked to do it either, Michael. If they have staff support doing this work for them, we should have access to the same and equitable staff support.
Yes, I understand. And certainly the clerk, what you're referring to is the CLERB review board. Yes, they are staffed associated with it, particularly with all the work, and there is a director associated with it, and that's all codified. And so that's the reasons why they have a body of individuals to help support. And I think there's somewhat of a distinction between that versus all the other committees that similar to this one, advisory committees. And so that's one aspect of it. And I think that's one of the other things that we were talking about. And I think that's alluded to in terms of the recommendation is how much work should be done by the staff, for example, like exercises like this versus to being given to the committee versus the committee do it in of themselves. When it comes down to the continuance of this, I think the overall arching question that the board is trying to determine is, do we need some of these committees or do we not? For example, like certainly this one is a vital committee to the board. And that's one of the reasons why you had, Supervisor Vargas docketing a board letter to talk and asking the Todd and his folks to review and determine where we could do better as a county, but also to explore other ways and then also get community input associated with that. It sounds like Andrew Potter is on, and Andrew, I don't know if you want to add any more to the question, but Kay is asking the question as to if there's a body of individuals and staff dedicated to CLERB, why not to all the other types of committees that are out there?
I would just add that the Office of Ethics and Compliance also obviously has staff.
Yeah, and I think that's the intent of the survey, and I jumped on in the middle of Michael Vu's response. But this is part of a effort that the county goes through every year. So every year we do a sunset review of a third of all boards and commissions. And the intent this year with the direction from the board was to expand that sunset review to be conducted to all boards and commissions, and then ask some additional questions that you see reflected in the letter here. And so that's what we're doing. But these, the majority of these questions really are focused on what types of needs boards and commissions need to continue, and then we'll go back to the board with this analysis and identify whether additional resources are needed.
Andrew, I think where the confusion is coming in, my understanding is that our committee was a mandate as a result of a lawsuit that the county lost decades ago. And so when we get into, and my name is next to this, and Rakina's is as well, who is a special education teacher, neither of us have time to complete this one item. But as we get into justification for continuance with appropriate goals and timetables, I look at that and I say, we've been repeatedly told by staff that all the boards and commissions have to do this. And I understand that this is part of your regular auditing process. However, I don't know that anyone on this committee has the time or the talent or the professional expertise to write such a narrative on behalf of the county staff. And so my question is, are you having the chairman of the planning commission do this same exact exercise? Are you having the chairman of the law enforcement review board do this same exact exercise? And if not, how can we get access to the same staff services? How can we be privy to the same staff support that they have?
Yeah, that's a great question. And how we've handled the sunset review in the past is it's directed to the staff liaison to the board or commission or committee. And they're the ones that facilitate that sunset review. And oftentimes it doesn't necessitate going to the board, commission, or committee. It's something that can be done at the staff level based on information that the board, commission, or committee has provided in the past.
Kay, I think that goes to the heart of my response earlier. I think really what it comes down to is it's an awareness level, and I think to the committee that we're working on this, that Todd and Katie formulate something together across all these 8 documents, make sure that they're in sync with where the committee is at on this, and once that occurs, then that information can float up to Andrew as he's compiling it across all the other commissions, boards, and committees. Let me know if I'm wrong in that regard, Andrew.
Nope, that's correct.
So my next question, are Katie and Todd, do they have other jobs at the county, or do we have dedicated staff to help with this?
No, Kay, let me maybe chime in on this. We have over 100 and some odd different committees that are out there. And there is a staff liaison associated with each and every single one of those. And certainly all of those, many of those individuals have other duties as well. And so I think that's really a discussion that needs to happen, whether or not how much time needs to be taken in this area. I should have probably started off by saying the reason why I'm involved now, as opposed to where I was in, why am I participating today, as opposed to having participated in the past, is because the Director of Office of Ethics and Compliance and Labor Standards and Enforcement, Claudia Silva, got appointed as the acting county counsel, and I was asked to step in to play a temporary role in this. And as I've been working with Todd and all the great work that he's been doing, and the discussions and the report back that needs to occur on Supervisor Vargas's board letter, this item came up, and Todd gave me the heads up associated with it, and some of the conversations that has been occurring with the committee. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to jump in to have certainly a discussion like this. But I think that the main aspect here is that you've got a lot of liaisons appointed that have other duties that may not even be their, that have, is a primary duty as opposed to the various commissions, committees, and boards. I think there's an element, some are more active than others. And so it's a matter of how much consumption of time that is dedicated towards this. Certainly this committee, there's been a higher level and motivation associated with it, with new members coming on board and kind of the direction and the objectives that you're working towards. And so that's elevating the amount of time that it's taking of Todd as well as with Katie. And that's one of the things that we need to better understand. That's part of the overall survey. So your point is well taken. The question is what's the right balance associated with that? And what is which is as good, which is kind of the clear direction of the committee and the committee's work. And so that being outlined will then allow and inform us to determine what level of resources that we need to put in. As I look at the 8, I don't know how many individuals have responded back, Andrew, at this point of time across the hundreds of commissions and committees. Certainly some are more intensive than others, but I think if I'm correct on this, Andrew, I think the intent here was it wasn't supposed to be, for lack of a better term, a huge work pill on anyone's behalf, that it would be something simple to put together and then respond back to Andrew as he's formulated. Andrew, do you want to chime in?
You've covered that well, yes. And that's how we've handled the responses in the past is this isn't a thesis on a committee's work. We just want to get a good overview of the work and understand some of these additional questions that we've asked in terms of accessibility and transparency, so that we can, again, formulate a report back to the board and find gaps where we as an organization need to enhance those different levels of services.
So
and I hate to put the two of you on the hot seat. I really appreciate both of you coming to the meeting. I know how busy you both are. And while you're here though, I do have to say, I hope that moving forward, as you're participating in your discussions with your electeds and planning for your future budgets, that you recognize the significance and the importance and the potential that this committee has. I did a little research work, and the last report that was published by a university back in 2015 said that there were approximately 400,000 people living in San Diego County that identified as being disabled. We have a significant population within our beloved community of individuals who need services. And there's a lot for us to do because we speak the same language, we walk the walk. There's a lot that this committee can do to reach those individuals. And so I hope that you don't short-sight us in the budgeting process, and that you consider the potential that we have to make a bigger impact on the community.
Thank you.
This is Michelle. I put up my hand, but I so appreciate Kay's last words, and I so appreciate Michael you hopping on, because we had all recognized that a letter was sent from the clerk's office, from Andrew Potter's office, to actually, it wasn't even to Todd, it was to the head of human, I forget, Elaine Pippin. So it wasn't sent to the committees, and I do appreciate that you're recognizing that, you know, we are volunteers and there's professional staff. I will say that all the years that I have been on this committee, I have never been asked to do this. So I'm not saying it didn't happen. It sounds like it happened with the staff, and it wasn't even necessarily brought to us. So I do appreciate that the balance, and what Kay said is what we have. This new group of people is so much out in the community and so invested in making a difference in this county. And I think that we have a unique opportunity, especially with the Board of Supervisors that we have and their investment and their support, as shown by Nora Vargas's letter to the board, that we have a great opportunity to expand that. And that is what I hope does happen, because we just as volunteers have already been doing that by asking to speak to each department, presenting ourselves as resources. You know, I've been giving my phone number, my personal phone number out. We want to do this. We want to be there. And this is a unique opportunity that I hope does come to fruition, expanded even, beyond what I may be thinking about at this moment. So I just wanted to put that in there. I think that the juxtaposition of Michael, your words and Kay's words very much intertwine to why this is important, that we have the support to be able to do the greater good. Thank you.
I appreciate that. If I can just maybe say a couple of additional words. I appreciate that, Michelle and Kay. So here's where I think where we need to be at. And I know that there's a list of recommendations. In fact, I talked with Todd about those recommendations. And it's good to know of the support, Kay, that you recognize all the work that Todd has been putting in, and then also the things that he's based off of the conversations he's and all the meetings that you've had thus far, as well as the working group that he's been working with internally. I think, there's been a lot behind the scenes that Todd has been working on, and I'm beginning to learn more about in this new role or that I have in not just the committee itself, but also with the overall Office of Ethics and Compliance, as well as the Office of Labor Standards and Enforcement. I would say, as the committee gets together and does additional work, I think that should probably be the driving factor. I think in this specific case with these 8 items, I think we kind of misled all of you, frankly, about having to address this. And I apologize, because I think it was almost conveyed in a way or done in a way that led, Kay, for you to give you an additional question in your mind as to, do I have enough time to do this as the chair? And that was not the case if that contributed to some of the questions in your mind about serving as chair. I know that there's other aspects that played into your decision, but that was never going to be the case. And so part of this is kind of reeling back the purpose of it. I know it's an agenda item, but like I said, it was not meant for any committee member somehow divvying this up, those 8 items, and divvying them up to make assignments. I think part of this is, hey, let's put this information together. Let's get the histrionics of why the committee, was there legal action being taken? If there was legal action being taken, then how do we move forward associated with that? And then I think the other side to this also, your objectives should inform the level of resources. So as you carry on and outline what those are, I think that will help inform us, and then put in the resources necessary to carry those initiatives forward or advise on those respective areas. Let me just say a couple of things. I got an opportunity to speak with the county grand jury, the civil grand jury, as opposed to the criminal grand jury, the civil grand jury, and they participate and they operate in 1 year. Okay, so in a full fiscal year from July 1st all the way to June 30th, they act as a body similar to your body here, representing across all the various county supervisorial districts. And one of the things that they look at is they have to look at the whole of government. And when I say the whole of government, I'm just not talking about the county government. I'm talking about special districts, school districts, anything within the region It could be a water district, or it could be a city. It could be a school district. It could be the county. Anything within the county's sphere as well as its region. And that's a lot to take in when you're doing that. And it could be a lot to try to chew off. I think there's a lot of, going into this, if you're a committee member, particularly if you're new and wanting to try to resolve and solve and see everything. And one of the recommendations that I talked with the grand jury on is you're going to get a lot of information at you. And for this body, you've been sitting on a lot of this, different various ways of it. So I would ask, and it looks like you have, is put these objectives in place, come out with an overall plan, a grand plan, and then that way we can resource it appropriately and be mindful of that, because what we normally do is in a 5-year cycle of planning. And so this can be part of that planning efforts, as opposed to the recommendation that I was giving to the grand jury, which is you're going to be seeing a lot of different things in the newspaper. You're going to hear a lot of different issues in the newspaper or on the news channels or on XYZ, whatever it may be. But as a grand jury body, if you chase those types of articles, by the time your year ends, that issue may have already been resolved. And so in the same vein is as you're looking at this, kind of the map out what those are, what the long-term issues are of how we can be more accessible to the 400,000 individuals that you speak about, Kay. And let's strive towards those areas. And I see this similar exercises as I was when I was over at the Registrar of Voters office, to the point where I think we're in a really good place. We're getting informed associated with it. We're not necessarily being able to resolve everything, but we're able to move things forward in a positive light, and do so in taking in consideration everything else that that the county is responsible for too. I think we need to show good faith in that regard, and I'm committed to doing so. And so that's what the whole purposes of these 8 questions is ultimately to find out, okay, do we need to do so? How do we need to do so? What level of resources need to be available? And then what level of transparency should there be across the board? I think that was a big topic of conversation when this item came up in front of the board, is to like the recording aspects of this. Should it be posted? When should it be posted? How should it be posted? The language components of this, should there be interpretation? Should there not be interpretations? When we start adding all those different elements to this across all the 100, I don't know, Andrew, how many commissions and committees that we had. I think I frankly spoke incorrectly to Michelle the other evening that we had over 200 of them. I think Andrew said that there's 130 plus of them, and it's growing. So, so I hear you in that regard. Like I said, I think we kind of misled you on this exercise, and that's unfortunate. And we need to reposition what these 8 items means. And I think what we need to do is put the legwork into it and then come back to you as a body to make sure that you concur. And then we're going to move forward to sending it up to Andrew.
Okay, that sounds great. That sounds great. Are there any other comments from the committee members? Okay, we're going to move on to the next item, which is a resolution authorizing continuance of teleconference public meeting pursuant to Government Code Section 54953E. Do I have a motion for approval?
I move.
Second?
I second. This is Sherry.
In favor, signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Objections? All right, hearing none, our next meeting will be chaired by Michelle Krug on September 9th, 2022.
Kay, did we do the minutes?
We did not approve the minutes. We need to request a motion for approval of the minutes.
I also move, we approve the July 8th meeting minutes.
And this is Sherry. I'll second it also.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Can you also do a vote on the July 29th minutes, please?
Oh, we do. We need a vote on the July 29th special meeting minutes. I need a motion for approval.
I'll go for the trifecta. I move.
Thank you, Jeanette. Second.
This is Sherry. I'll second it.
Thank you, Sherry. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? And that concludes our meeting. So I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting.
Okay, before we do
Yes.
that, I am glad to have Andrew on the call. I wanted to ask if the committee would like to hear, we've got a couple of speakers that we're working on. One is the district attorney, as well as a law enforcement services bureau representative, and then as well with Andrew Strong with the Office of Equity and Racial Justice, wondering if there is what the wish of the committee is for speakers in the next upcoming months.
We had requested that we hear from our sheriff's department. Have we made any progress with them, or has a request been sent to them? Specifically, the people working in the field. When it happened, Andrew, we asked for, because it's one of our priority areas, a presentation from the sheriff's department on how disabled individuals are being managed through our jail facilities, which was very, very helpful. However, we had such a high-ranking officer on the call, we really didn't get our questions answered on the dance floor. They were more on the balcony level. And so we have requested a subsequent meeting with the sheriff's department with guests who are not involved so much in the higher management of the organization. So we could get our questions, hopefully we can get them answered.
And Kay,
What we're
they
working on next.
they also were supposed to answer the last two questions that were my questions that did not get answered.
So then what I was mentioning, Kay, was that we have gotten a contact for the Law Enforcement Services Bureau. That is I think the question or the request from the committee was, I don't know if you're asking when you say to not have someone as high up or senior in the organization, but I was under the impression that you had heard from detention services, but there were questions that the committee wanted to hear from the field, from law enforcement services. So detention is the jails, law enforcement services are the forces that are out in the field.
That's correct, Todd. It would probably be best if we set up two separate sessions, whoever can attend first. When we were talking to the captain, bless his heart, he was such a nice, and he was so nice and so professional and so patient with us. But the commander kept interrupting him, and he'd say, I'll answer that. And then and at one point the captain referenced and said, I know the answer to this, but my field staff really are the ones that deal with it every day. And so after they left us, if you remember, we kind of reconnected during that meeting. It was still on the record. Some of us felt that we needed to speak to somebody who wasn't so much in the ivory tower, for lack of better terms. So it would be great if we could have maybe the facility manager on the Zoom. And once we complete that portion, or if we can get both of them at the same time, we can speak to somebody who's actually working out in the field. And Jose, just to give you some context to our guest, Jose is in a mobility chair 24/7. And he had specifically said he has to use a Hoyer lift to be placed on the toilet and in and out of bed. And at the facility that accommodates individuals with physical disabilities, he asked if a Hoyer lift was available. And the commander did not know the answer to that question, probably because he hasn't been in that jail, I'm guessing, for a long, long time. So we'd actually like to talk to somebody who's working in that facility.
Okay, so then you do want someone in detention services, but someone that is at the facilities.
Correct.
Okay.
Jessica has her hand up.
Hi, I would just like to request that we make sure that we're also speaking to the people that would be doing the arrests and the booking, because everything that leads up until that point is just as critical as what happens from that point on.
So that's the Law Enforcement Services Bureau.
Noted. And Michelle?
I'm not, oh yes, thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted, before Andrew Potter left, I thought there were several other things that we were supposed to have some feedback about the recommendations that Todd is suggesting, because I thought we've been waiting for 2 meetings to hear them. And also with, I don't know if Andrew Potter is still on, but I was hoping that we could have the conversation about resending out the survey to include disabilities. If you're contacting all 130 of the committees, commissions, boards, it makes sense to bring that in on the ground floor. I understand it was an omission, but you know, we can rectify it and we can fix it right now.
He is on, Michelle, so I'll let him speak to that.
Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, and I've spoken to a number of committee members, either via email or by phone on this topic, and certainly am appreciative of the information that I personally have learned about the types of questions we should have asked in the demographic survey. And where we're at with that survey is it has closed at this point, so we can compile the demographic info and use it to compare against the census data, which is what other jurisdictions are doing. And what our plan is that this is a baseline, this is a starting point for these types of surveys, and that this will give us an opportunity to expand on that in the future. And I think the sunset review process that you all saw and were discussing, there are questions in there about what additional needs committees have. And so we're hoping to get some more information about what persons with disabilities that are serving on a board or commission, what they need and are expecting to be provided from the county. And so we'll be informed through that sunset review process as well.
So I just have to say that I understand that you closed it. It doesn't mean you can't reopen it and ask people to fill that part in, admitting that this was a really major faux pas. And I'm just going to tell you that people feel very dismissed and disheartened by you having, I've spoken to people on Nora Vargas's staff and on Nathan's staff, that you know that this is a major issue that the supervisors are taking up, and yet, yes, it was a mistake. I can live with a mistake, but you fix mistakes. And to me, it would be much better that it get delayed an extra week, that it gets reopened and all of the chairs are asked specifically to make sure they get an answer from the people on their committees, and have it returned so it can be from the beginning, not waiting. It's really hurtful to say, okay, well, 5 years in the future, when we do our next survey, or even a year, then we'll put you in. It's like, we're here right now. We've been here. We have been working. And to not fix it right now doesn't make any sense. And especially a comment that I had heard, and Kay can correct me, but when it was first brought up, I think it was from your office, I'm not 100% sure, the comment back from a staffer was, well, we were just using the survey that the Human Relations Office used, and they didn't include disability, so we just copied theirs. It's like, we're telling you we're here. And because they were so oblivious to leave us out, doesn't mean, I mean, that needs to be fixed and that needs to be a conversation. And I'm glad that Andrew Strong is here because I know he will take that up. But right now, we can fix this with this survey, the first one. We don't need to be in the second batch. We need to be in the first batch. And as far as the sunset review, again, we need to be telling, I mean, the recommendations that Todd just suggested, I mean, there's some very specific things that could be asked for. Like every committee should have a spot that is specifically for a disabled person. There's a lot of organizations that set spots for their priorities, for what they care about. And the fact that that isn't happening, again, says something about us being consistently invisible and dismissed. And I know every conversation I've had with people on this committee, that is what people feel. I mean, Jessica, you guys can talk obviously for yourselves, but that is a really hurtful, I know Candy feels that, it's a really hurtful position to tell us to wait when it's obvious that it should have been in the first round.
Jessica and Michael both have their hands up. Jessica, do you want to go next?
I just want to say thank you so much, Michelle and Kay, for your leadership today. It's been a hard meeting for me. I'm not as vocal, but you guys are doing an absolutely incredible job of representing the committee today, and I thank you so much.
Thank you. Michael?
I feel like I'm the intersection of because of a lot of different things that happen at the board, and I get a lot of information coming my way, and sometimes they connect and sometimes they don't connect. And this is kind of like one of those areas where good intentions, bad outcomes, if you will, is that, you know, something's happening over here. And as you know, we have like nearly 20,000 employees. We've got like hundreds, if not thousands, of different various programs happening at every given time. And certainly sometimes these things connect and sometimes they don't. And we try to have them connect as best as possible. If I can, Michelle, because again, this is a topic of a conversation that I had with Michelle the other day. And like I said, at the very onset of this thing, Michelle and I have built a relationship over the years to get it to where it is today. And I feel like it's a professional one, it's a respectful one, it's a very direct one. When we need to be as to our where we're at in all of this. So let me see if I could get an approach that maybe we can move forward with on this, because I know that it has been a sticking point. And Andrew, and what I said to Michelle about this very topic when I discussed it with her, and know that Kay, I wanted to reach out to you, and I will reach out to you personally to talk with you as the chair, because I wanted to get your thoughts on this, not on this specific topic, but just in general, as you've been chairing the committee as a whole. But one of the things I touched base with Michelle on is when Andrew was asked and tasked to do this by the board, it was prescriptive as to what he should be looking at. And it has a multitude of different things that he needs to be looking at from all the boards and commissions and committees, as well as the survey. And so he needs to, at some point, report back and return back to the board on this. And I don't want to necessarily have him held up on this. So let me see if I can maybe when we talk about resources, maybe this is one of those areas, because this is the body by which advice should be given to an individual like Andrew, as well as to Andrew Strong and all the other boards and commissions that are out there. And I think that's one of the reasons why there should be some connection across all of them, because this is one of those areas. So let me maybe propose something, Michelle, and the rest of the committee members. Would it be worthwhile, knowing that a survey has already gone out? My concern today was when Todd was going to convey the recommendations, that you're hearing these recommendations for the very first time and not have an opportunity to look at it and to chime in on it. And so I know that Todd has a report back that by board action was to be done on August 30th. I'd like to propose that we push and send a memo, that the CAO's office would send a memo saying we need additional time on this side to work on our own survey, frankly, to get an understanding of that. And that way it could be part of Todd's report back by the, across all the boards, commissions, and committees. And that's coming from the committee. I think it would be best if it came from the committee, as opposed to it coming through Andrew's side of this, because that, I think it'll give much more credence to the committee's work and an effort of apparent, make it more conspicuous as to the work that this committee is doing. So I don't know how Andrew feels. I'm throwing this out there as kind of a, first time that anyone's hearing it, but I do believe that certain questions should have been asked. I think this body can formulate those types of questions more appropriately, and then be able to proceed forward. I don't think anyone, whether it's Supervisor Vargas or any of the other Board of Supervisors, would mind for us to take additional time to report back, knowing that we're comprehensive in that. And I think this is kind of a learning lesson across not just one exercise, but across all the exercises, that a new tone is trying to be set in terms of the way that we're approaching people with disabilities and serving individuals with a disability or disabilities.
That was well said. We to summarize it, we'd like to be your priority, not an afterthought.
Yeah. So, and I think, so I'll leave that there as being a guest, but hopefully something that we can bridge this together and be able to proceed, but also recognizing that we do want this input.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can just chime in, I think that's a fantastic idea, Michael. And I think that would provide an opportunity for light to be shown on this committee and the great work that they're doing. We were focused on demographic information that we could compare against the census. And there's lots of questions we could have and should have asked about the diversity of members of boards and commissions. And so I recognize that, lots of various boards and commissions throughout this county probably are thinking, well, why didn't you ask something about this? Why didn't you ask something about this? And so I think Michael's suggestion is fantastic. And maybe that would be a great topic for this committee to talk about, what types of questions you want to ask members of boards and commissions in this organization, so you can compile some information.
I hate to do this, but I have a 420 eye exam that took me 2 months to get. So I am going to sign off. Should I adjourn the meeting, or Rakina, can you do that?
I see Jessica Kramer's hands up. Sorry to interrupt y'all.
Sorry, that was that was an old hand.
Okay.
And Rakina actually said that she's on an important call, so she's sorry she's not being responsive. I don't know, that was a while ago though. I don't know if she's back.
Okay, well, I'm going to adjourn the meeting then. Thank you for your participation today. And Michael, if you'd like to chat, I'm going to put my cell phone number in the chat box.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.